Hello and welcome to Sri Raj IAS. My name is Shashank. In UPSC essay, there was a question: history repeats itself, first as a tragedy and second as a farce. Now, the question is how Donald Trump will be remembered in the history. In the history of humankind, how Donald Trump will be remembered as a man who was hell bent upon or who is credited to break down the global rule based world order. Will he be remembered as a man who was invader and destructor of the multilateral institution such as World Trade Organization or other organization? Or will he be remembered as a president who never applied his mind, always ready for hard bargain and throwing ethics, integrity and aptitude and human values out of the windows? We'll look at this article and we will understand why Trump is calling NATO a paper tiger. Donald Trump has always criticized NATO and NATO members and threatened to exit NATO when the matter was going on related to accession of Greenland. Let's talk about this article and let's understand this topic through diagrams. Now, why paper tiger? What is the meaning of paper tiger? Paper tiger means someone who is only a bluff master, who is only a bluff master. It means that you are a tiger which can roar, you are a tiger which can roar, but you cannot bite. This is what is the meaning of paper tiger. Now, why Donald Trump is saying that? Because NATO members are not supporting USA wholeheartedly. Let's understand. NATO is already fighting a war at Russia-Ukraine front. Russia-Ukraine front. There is its fourth year. This war is going on, and there is a fatigue. There is a fatigue among citizens and the nations because of this war. NATO resources are exhausted completely. Not completely. NATO resources got exhausted in Russia-Ukraine war. Now there is another front of war. There is another front of war at Hormuz. Now the allies are divided that whose war it is. Allies are divided that whose war it is. Is it the war of European nations? Is it the war of Israel? US is fighting. There is another question that should they be a part? Should European Union be a part of this war? Because European economy is not doing great. The third is, should we trust Trump? Should we trust Trump as a leader who tried to annex Greenland? Or the man who is unpredictable, especially after attacking Venezuela and now threatening Cuba? There is also a dilemma that in Russia-Ukraine mediation, Donald Trump never consulted European countries. Donald Trump never consulted European countries. There is also a question that in case if Russia is attacking some other European Union countries, will NATO safeguard their interest, or will USA support their security? There is also a question that will European Union be able to retaliate against Russian aggression in future? There is another angle to it, that European nations are not so energy dependent. So 40% of European Union's energy comes from Russia, which is under sanctions. So the European powers or NATO allies are in dilemma, what to do and what not to do. But one thing is for sure, that European allies are not in a mood to be trapped into another prolonged war. There's a war fatigue. Every day this war is costing USA great. Per second, USA is spending $11,000 per second in this war. In this 3 weeks war, in this 21-day war, US has spent approximately $18 billion USD. $18 billion already done. Now Pentagon says Pentagon says that they need $200 billion, 200 billion USD to fund this war. So there is a resource crunch. There is also a facility. There is also a possibility that NATO might face. That is, the one is already there in Russia-Ukraine war. There is another front on at Hormuz. There may be another front at South China Sea related to Taiwan. There may be a front at East China Sea done by North Korea. Or there may be an Arctic war. Arctic war because the preparation is going on. So NATO resources are running short. NATO countries are in dilemma. Energy security has become the biggest challenge for these European countries. Again, Donald Trump's unpredictable behavior is putting them in a between difficult choices. Should we trust this leader or should we leave? What if USA exits NATO? What will happen? And why this much of distrust is coming from among the members against Trump? Because Trump tried to annex Greenland, which itself is a NATO member. Right? So I hope you got the concept clear. Let's talk about this article. The triggered Strait of Hormuz. Strait of Hormuz got disrupted. Global oil prices are surging. Right? It's more than $112 now. US expects NATO to support in securing shipping lanes and counter Iran militarily, but NATO members are largely refusing to initiate, and that's why Donald Trump has called them paper tiger, because these members are not supporting them, and there is a strategic hypocrisy. Donald Trump also says that this is the liability, NATO is a liability on USA that USA is carrying. They say that without USA, NATO is nothing. Allies want cheap oil but won't take the risk, which signals that deep cracks within transatlantic treaty. There is a possibility that Donald Trump announced that they are leaving NATO, and if US exits NATO, there will be a great repercussion. Now, why NATO is holding back? The core dilemma. There is already a multi-front war going on. They are already engaged in Russia-Ukraine war. Opening another front in West Asia, which will be a strategic overstretch, and this will lead to lack of resources. Now, budget and military limitation. Many European states struggle to meet 2% of NATO defense target, which Donald Trump wants to increase. Military stocks already depleted due to Ukraine support, and the reality is limited capability for another war theater. And there is a possibility for a new theater of war within South China Sea between China and Taiwan. Now, energy vulnerability. Europe is dependent on Russia for 40% of oil and energy sources, which is already under sanction and strained. Middle East oil gas is already in trouble. So, direct conflict with Iran will lead to supply disruption and price shock, which European Union is not ready to bear. Now, the domestic political pressure. There is already a war fatigue among citizens. Citizens are clamoring and protesting against the US government's decision. Rising inflation and economic stress which is leading further aggravating the problem. And government is unwilling to risk unpopular foreign intervention. People might be in the street, and they are already in the street. In USA, there is a huge protest going on that this is not our war. USA was tricked or trapped by Israel in its war. Next is lack of consultation by USA. US launched a strike without full NATO consensus, and that is the result that is resulting in trust deficit within alliance. No member of NATO was consulted before this war. In fact, the Congress didn't allow it. It was a unilateral individual decision of Donald Trump to attack Iran, which is leading to trust deficit. Now, what is the calculation of Europe? Europe wants to avoid escalation. It wants to maintain energy security and internal stability. So they want diplomacy and military diplomacy to give it a chance instead of military intervention. Always remember, when diplomacy fails, war happens. War happens. Right? When diplomacy fails, war happens. Now, earlier, Iran was ready to solve it diplomatically, but US refused it. Now US wants a mediation, Iran is refusing it. No, no means no. You killed our leader, you invaded our territory, you killed our oil fields, and now there is no negotiation. So Iran is in full mood to inflict heavy damages to to USA and its allies, which is making it difficult for the whole world. Now, Iran factor, no negotiation space, Trump claims, no leader left to talk to, conflict entering uncontrollable phase. So, this is how the entire escalation is going on. This is what the ground situation. What this means is NATO unity is weakening, transatlantic treaty is weakening, especially the credit goes to Donald Trump. US and Europe divergence widening, global order is shifting from alliance based to interest based politics. बच्चे लोग remember global order is shifting from alliance based to interest based politics. Okay. Now, final takeaways. NATO is not weak but selectively cautious. NATO still has the capacity to strike back and dismantle Iran in seconds. But the question is are NATO members ready? Is there a unity? No, there is no unity. There is a trust deficit. So, NATO is being selectively cautious. Europe's refusal is not cowardice but calculated restraint, because US wants action and Europe fears escalation, and Europe is not ready to pay for this war. US is not at all ready to pay for this war, which is the war of Israel being fought by USA, and the entire world is paying the price. So this is it in this article. We'll get back to you with a new article. Thank you so much. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.